Well, it's Chris Van Vliet alongside my guest who's from Green Bay, Wisconsin, Mr.
Seriously?
No?
Put some bass in your goddamn voice.
Mr. That wasn't good.
Say it like you freaking mean it, like from your lungs. Get some.
I need the stance,
from
right?
your diaphragm. Go ahead.
That's scary.
Go ahead.
Mr.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Very important that you get the "nah" at the end of that. Mr. And pinkies up.
Pinky up.
Anderson! Anderson!
It's Mr. Anderson.
How you doing, man?
I'm great.
Give me a hug. Let's
Good
hug
to
it
see
out.
you. Oh my gosh, that's quite a hug. Oh, this is a good hug too. Wow. Oh, good to see you
What a
again. Man, how you feeling?
I feel fantastic. You know, I just flew in from Minneapolis.
Right.
It's raining here. It's not the greatest weather conditions, but I'll take this over negative 35.
I love that you get to do the bookings you want to do. This is, I mean, it must be awesome for you.
It is. Being that I'm a TNA worker, wrestled for TNA, I am an independent contractor, so I get to go around and do Legends of Wrestling. I get to travel all over the world, Scotland, England, Australia, Italy, Germany, doing my own thing. I'm my own boss, basically.
So how many days a month does TNA say, we need you for this?
Well, the nice thing about TNA is that in the last year to year and a half, we basically pound out, say, 5 to 6 weeks of television in a few days. So literally I'll work for 3 days at the beginning of the month, 4 days maybe, 5 days at the most, and we'll pound out 2 months of television, and then we're done for 2 months, and then I can go sit at home if I want to and do nothing, or I get to travel around the world. And
You still love this, don't you?
I really do, man. And I've gone through seasons throughout my career of really loving the business to almost hating the business at one point, and I'm back to loving the business again. And I think it's just I went through a phase. I had a realization where I just don't get mad about anything because there are so many variables. We're always traveling. We're always constantly on the road. We're in airports. We're in hotels, and things inevitably go wrong in all of those scenarios. And in our business is so screwed up. You got so many egos running around. People, it's that fine line of like stroking people's egos and actually having to be a boss, you know, in the cases of like Vince McMahon or Dixie Carter. I got to the point where like I just don't let things bother me anymore. And it's freeing. It's if I go to the airport and my flight is delayed or canceled for some reason, I can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
And me getting pissed off about it isn't going to affect you. If you're the guy standing behind the counter, it's not going to affect you. It just affects me.
Yeah.
And so I sort of take that approach with life in general.
Well, you said that you almost hated the business at one point. What was it specifically that made you hate it?
You know, there's a lot of, I was navigating like a sort of a treacherous minefield. I just lost my dream job. I, worked for WWE for four and a half years, spent 6 years trying to get there. And then, through some personal missteps, and I take 90% of the blame, 95% of the blame, but, there's some other things that, always play into that. And, that was just disheartening. And, I was just tired and exhausted. The WWE schedule is a tough one. And coming off of doing, every single week, 4 to 7 days a week. We do 4 days a week if we're in country and 7 days a week if you're out of country, if you're going on these international tours. Remember the first international tour I did, we did 21 shows, we did 19 shows in 21 days. And we were in a different country every night, in a different city, in a different state. And it just stuff like that is crazy. And then to go from go all the time to nothing
Yeah.
is it's crazy, and it's amazing what it does to your mind, what it can do to your mind. Even though I've tried to remain as humble as I can and realize that, you know, I'm a normal guy like everybody else. I put my pants on the same way.
I feel like you had a rocket strapped to your back in WWE. I mean, you were on the fast track to the main event, and then you got sidelined by some injuries.
Yeah.
How different would it be if those injuries hadn't happened?
Who knows? I mean, you know, there were a lot of things. There was a situation where I had the Money in the Bank briefcase at WrestleMania. Got called into the office, was told, like, we're putting the title on you next week. You're going to come out and cash it in against Undertaker. Basically laid out the whole scenario.
Where were you going to cash in against Undertaker?
Penn State University. No,
Was it a pay-per-view or is it
in
Raw?
Pennsylvania somewhere. It was going to be a SmackDown.
Oh, wow.
And so basically, the very next time that I wrestled in, I believe it was where Monday Night Raw started out, and ECW used to run this building, and
Hammerstein Ballroom?
No. It's New York. It's Poughkeepsie. And wrestled. We did a double shot, and on the second show, no, I believe it was on the first show, I did like a 6-man or an 8-man tag. It was super easy.
Yeah.
And just Batista pulled me into he shot me to a corner, and then he grabbed me and he gave me like a little short clothesline. And when I hit the mat, I felt something in my triceps pop. And I rolled out to the floor, and I remember Fit Finley coming out to the floor and saying, like, that looks screwed up. And by the time I got down to the locker room, I couldn't move my arm. My arm was swollen, and it was already starting to turn black and blue. So I was like, something's definitely wrong here.
Sure.
I got an MRI that night in Erie, Pennsylvania, and then went to the hotel and just awaited the results. And Stephanie McMahon called me and said, Ken, you tore your triceps. We're sending Vince's jet to pick you up. You're going to be out for 7 to 8 months. You're going to have this surgically repaired.
Wow.
You're going to be out for 7 or 8 months. We're sending Vince's jet, though. Unfortunately, we still need to get the title off of Taker because Taker was hurt at the time, and they needed to get the title off of him.
Yeah.
So they ended up sending me to Vince's jet. Came pick me up. Edge called me a chicken on Monday Night Raw. I put up my briefcase that I had 1 year to cash in.
Yeah.
And Edge went on to do what I was going to do. The next day, I went down to Birmingham, Alabama, and met with James Andrews. And James Andrews sat on the table and literally did this and went, "That's not a tear. You didn't tear that." No.
Huh.
And I went, "Excuse me?" And he said, "Yeah, let's do another MRI, but I'm pretty sure that's not a tear." And sure enough, it was just a large hematoma. It was a bruise. It was like some blood vessels popped in my triceps and just opened up. I was out for maybe a month and then back. So, I mean, you know, but the thing is like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And had that not occurred, then I wouldn't have met I wouldn't have gotten fired from WWE. And I wouldn't have therefore then met my agent in New York and had all the opportunities that I had with going to acting classes and pursuing acting and having some, you know, near successes there. It's something I'm still working on.
Yeah.
But, you know, just tons of people that I met. I wouldn't have the beautiful kids that I have today. Like, you know, having that time off, we were able to focus on, let's have a family. And I've got 2 twins that are 2 years old, just turned 2 on January 13th. And so, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
congratulations.
It is what it is.
I want to mention, now that you mentioned kids, is there any truth to the rumor that you were going to be Vince McMahon's illegitimate son and that, you know, that ended up being Hornswoggle in that debacle of an angle?
Yes.
Really? So what happened?
I got in trouble with a bunch of other people. So,
I like that you're open about, you know, saying that, though.
I got in trouble. And, again, that is what it is. And I didn't necessarily agree with it at the time, and I don't necessarily agree with it now, but
You take some ownership for it, though.
I did it. So.
Is that trouble, as you call it, the reason you got fired, or is it this Randy Orton stuff that...
No, it was, and people always want to point, like, you know, I hate to bring it up, but when Benoit did what he did, everybody wanted to point at one thing, pointed to steroids. Well, it wasn't the steroids. It was the steroids and the other drugs and the booze and the lifestyle of being on the road as and running it hard and going through injuries and losing people. He lost his best friend and having an ex-wife that was already taking tons of child support and alimony from him. And now, you know, if you read the rumors, it looked like Nancy was getting ready to do the same thing to him. So he was going to have another situation where he was going to be divorced twice, and he was tired and exhausted. And, you know, you start to see, like, it's not just one particular thing. And it wasn't just one particular thing in my case. It was me being cocky and arrogant in the first place, and deciding that everybody needed to know what Mr. Kennedy felt about the whole Benoit situation in the first place. And I remember I was very vocal about it, and that got me a lot of heat, and it got me a lot of praise in some circles, but it also got me heat. And you know, I made missteps.
So if you could go back and do anything differently, would you?
Oh yeah, tons of stuff. Yeah.
What would you change?
That stuff, I would just shut my mouth about certain things, and I would try to get along better with certain people. I've never been a kiss ass, and you hear about people at WWE walking around with heat, and there's all this, they're walking around in eggshells and stuff, and I never felt that. I never felt like, look, I've always been the kind of guy that no matter where I work, I'm the same guy whether the boss is around or the boss is gone. And I remember seeing, no matter where I worked, say the boss is like an absent boss at a different facility somewhere, and then they make their monthly rounds or whatever, and they come, and everybody starts to act different. Oh, the big guy's in town, we gotta act, you know, everything's gotta be a certain way. And I'm like, why are you acting differently? Like, just be yourself. Just work hard, be yourself, don't be a dick, and you'll be okay. And I think to the most part, or for the most part, that's true, and it's true at WWE.
I've heard a lot of guys say that when they made the transition to TNA, they were a lot happier. You know, a lot more creative control, even though you might not have as much spotlight. Can you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. Tons of creative control. It's just a really laid back atmosphere. Everybody in the locker room gets along. There is no feelings of, nobody has those feelings of walking on eggshells. Whether it's, you know, sometimes I think in the WWE, that feeling of the eggshells that everybody talks about is sort of made up in their own heads. And you hear enough people say that, and then you start to think, like, well, I better watch everything that I do.
Well, you got to watch everything you do, because if you get let go, there's not really another game in town.
Right, and that's the thing. That's where people get so, I think, paranoid. But there is life after the WWE.
You cut a promo in TNA that's gone on to be famous or infamous, talking about how WWE controlled the way you walked, talked, dressed, wouldn't let you chew gum. Did they really have that much control over you?
Yeah, I actually, I got in trouble I would get regularly chewed out for chewing gum.
In WWE?
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, I chew gum because I get cotton mouth really bad when I wrestle. I get dry mouth. So I chew gum, and it's one of those things that, you know, I just thought, like, I always look for, like, little nuances in people's performances. And just those little things that somebody does that nobody else does. And I remember my grandmother being, and people of her generation being extremely irritated whenever they would see somebody chomping on their gum. And so I just started doing, I think I did it by accident, and somebody said, like, one time, like, you should keep doing that. And I saw it, and I was like, yeah, I look like a total jackass when I'm out there. You know,
it was the way you chew the gum and walk to the ring. It's I own this place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would come back and get chewed out on the spot from Vince McMahon. Like, you look like a chomping your goddamn gum.
So Vince has that much say in the day-to-day of what's going on?
Excuse me, yes. Yep, wow. He really does. He did at the time. I don't know if things are changed now. But look, I mean, that's his business. That's his baby.
Yeah.
And he's obviously successful, and I don't have to agree with, you know, they make certain business decisions. You don't have to agree with it, but if you're an employee of the company, you either do it or you figure out a way to persuade them to see otherwise, you know. And I wasn't necessarily good at doing that. I would just do it.
Well, you obviously had a great career with WWE, a great career as well in TNA. If Vince were to call you up and say, "We'll give you another run," would you do it?
It's hard to say. I work for TNA right now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, but I would just leave it at never say never about anything.
Sure.
But I think it would be unfair to even entertain the idea right now. I happen to be under contract with TNA, so I mean, if you worked for Apple and somebody said like, "Hey, if IBM called you tomorrow, would you go work for them?" and you said yes, I'm pretty sure Apple would say, "Hit the highway, you know, hit the bricks." So,
All right, sorry to put you in that position then.
well, no, it's a fair question. That's my answer.
And it's a fair answer, but you know, to bring it right around full circle, it's tomorrow night, Legends of Wrestling,
Yeah.
and you're taking on the Nasty Boys.
Yeah, freaking nasty boys. They're freaking nasty.
I just got pit stopped, so try to not let that
That
happen.
ain't happening to me.
Yeah, all right.
That ain't happening to me, and it's not happening to my partner tomorrow. You know, I'll tell you what, these guys have been around the world. They've and been in the game for so long. They know all the tricks. They know, obviously, those are, you know, rubbing your armpit in somebody's face is like the equivalent of spitting in your face. It might be worse.
It might be.
You know, Rikishi putting his butt in your face.
Yeah, stink face.
You know, Vince McMahon making you kiss his butt. Like, it's along those lines. I don't intend to be humiliated like that. I intend to, in fact, humiliate them. So,
Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson. Thank you.